Hey, hey. Y'all know
Happy Thursday.
It's Happy Thursday. Okay, look. Oh, let's start here.
Oh,
very quickly though. All right.
Wait, you didn't see my cup.
Come on. Okay. All right. There we go. Hello. We usually do that for the next part, but whatever. Anyway, welcome. Listen, y'all remember the Me Too movement, right? Where like everybody got
Me Too.
Well, we'll start there.
Okay.
But remember, there was all that stuff about women who were feeling uncomfortable in the workplace. They have finally voiced their opinions. And then all these companies were like, hey, we're going to change our way. Remember in 2020, after the unfortunate, tragic, and completely wrong murder of George Floyd, all these companies was all on diversity. Black Lives Mattered so much, right? When Pride became popping, then all the companies went ahead and did that. And then now, Juneteenth, which I have decided is your holiday, but we won't get into it, has now become the company's holiday. Okay, so saying all that to say, those are kind of great things, but you know, we get into a point where diversity and inclusion and equity is sort of trendy, right? All of these companies really made a lot of promises, and I don't know that all of them made good on them. Just to tell us that in our particular case, because we don't live anywhere else, but I'm sure wherever you live, your country, your city, your state, wherever you live has a problem, okay? And so does America. Bop, 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 bop. Shout out to Beyonce, the Queen, and King Kendrick for the remix. So listen, there's nothing wrong with trying to be woke, okay? But, you know, diversity is great in talk, but theory is a little different. So if you are a person who is challenging yourself in terms of diversity, if you want to learn more about what that means, if you are looking to express the newfound diversity that you found in yourself, then boy, oh boy, is this episode for you. Y'all should want to stick around. Keep it locked.
Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman.
All right, y'all, welcome to Truthful Chats. It's the official clink. Hello.
Hello.
Official clink. And the J Cup. I used to use this for production. Anyway, welcome to Truthful Chats. This is where we practice our ongoing journey of getting to generational wellness. If you don't know what that is, please check out wherever you're watching this video. And there's more on that. So Create Generational Wellness is our channel where we talk about all the things: mental, emotional health, spiritual health, financial health, wellness, all the things. Anyway,
we want you to be
well. Want you to be well. Be well. Shout out to Janae Aiko for all the meditation.
Be in good health.
Okay.
Amen.
Be well.
You won't break my soul.
You won't break my soul. All those things. And so Truthful Chats, which is what you're watching now, is the podcast, man, where we talk about all of the things. Okay, the things. So at Create Generational Wellness, we have a theme every month. And then the Truthful Chat topics unpack that theme a little bit. So this month's theme is celebrate, because we have so many things to celebrate. It's June, happy Pride, happy Black History. Black Music Month. Sorry, Black History just came out of my mouth. I mean, Black music is Black History,
right?
You know, and whatever else we're celebrating in June that I might not be aware of. Okay. But today's episode is called Celebrate Your Diversity, man. We always talk about everybody else, but what about the things that make you unique? Okay, and you're great. So I think we gotta like sort of have this conversation. So everything we're talking about, it starts with you first, okay? Before you out here trying to save everybody else, okay? Get into saving yourself, okay? So particularly when it comes to diversity, right? That's about recognizing and appreciating the differences that we all have individually. So whether that is ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation or identity, or really any other aspect of life that we could think of culturally, right? With foods, which I feel like in America, we're really good at that part. The food part, no problem. Okay. We live in LA. There's anything and everything you want, and everybody eats everybody's food. They might call you all kind of racial slurs behind your back, but they're going to show up at the cookout. Okay. But anyway, saying all that to say, by valuing diversity, we feel that you build stronger communities, right? And maybe we're biased. We've only lived on the coast, okay, New York and LA. That's no
Since I've been
disrespect.
grown.
That's no disrespect to the middle of the country, but I'm just saying they're a little bit slower to change. And we're only talking about America. I'm sure wherever you live, y'all might have cultural wars or tribal wars or any kind of, y'all don't mess with people from this part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Whatever your thing is.
It comes across however it comes across.
Humans will always find a way to divide themselves. I want to highly recommend Secret Invasion on the Disney Plus. Shout out to Marvel and the whole crew. Shout out to Unc and everybody that's out there. Y'all should check that out. They had a lot of things to say about this particular situation. Of course, it has to do with aliens, but if you're paying attention, you'll be picking up the themes. Anyway, diversity is great, like we said, because it strengthens communities, it promotes equality, and it fosters a more inclusive and tolerant society. We talk about that a lot, but we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more in depth. Because the real problem is, okay, America has a problem, but so do you. And I do too. We all do. The problem comes when you don't appreciate those differences because
you don't recognize them, but do you appreciate them? Do you celebrate
the people,
them?
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes from ignorance, right? Lack of knowledge of others. And it's really rooted in fear, right? Distrust of the other, which is where homophobia comes from.
And sometimes we have a historical context for distrust of the others.
Everything comes down to that. Wars are started from that. Homophobia, dysphophia, transphobia, racism is something that has to do with you're afraid of the other person for whatever reason.
Or you don't trust.
And you don't trust them, you hate them, but it's usually rooted in ignorance. It's like you don't really know them, that you're just making a general assumption about people who identify this way or look like this or do this thing. And so it's all kind of rooted in
and it's been going on for generations. This is kind of like we talk about generational wellness. This is
generational
trauma or sickness that people have perpetuated some things about other people that they don't even really know is true, but it has gone down from generation to generation, and now here we still are dealing with these things.
Sometimes you might actually have a legitimate gripe with a person from that community, okay? Like maybe you would. A person, though, is the point. A person. That doesn't mean that everybody, from that group or that racial ethnicity or that sexual orientation or that particular diversity identifies that way, okay? Like we said, behavior makes sense. If you talk to people long enough, you might not agree with them, but if you talk to people long enough, some of the things they are saying, it makes sense. And empathy is the goal here. So let's get into how we break these cycles a little bit. Pam?
Yeah. So let's start with personal diversity, which refers to the unique characteristics and experience of you, your person, the other people around you. This is your individual identity. And so celebrating diversity means you recognize that uniqueness, that difference in another person, and find something to celebrate about it. You certainly can. I mean, we've talked about this before. We have differences in the way we work, the way we think about things, but I think we've learned a lot from each other over the years. And, you get that, especially generationally, you can get different perspectives if you choose to listen. So this is a really important concept in the doctor world, in the mental health world. And the Akron Children's Hospital actually thinks teaching children this concept is so important that they have certain steps and things that you can hit and points that you can do to help your children celebrate diversity more and understand it. And of course, we know as you're doing this, you're doing it for yourself as well. And hopefully you've done it first, right? So one of the things that they talk about being really important. And I'm a firm believer in conversations. Everything starts with conversation. You have to understand that the words you're speaking and the words you're hearing and giving back are going to develop whatever the culture is, whatever the relationship is. All of that is going to come out of these conversations. So the first thing in this diversity piece is knowledge, like we talked about. You don't know why people do certain things in a culture. You don't know the history, unless you took the time to have a conversation and be curious about it and dig into it a little bit.
Or read a book or Google. And some of y'all read a book and Google. You got the whole world on your phone and you didn't do that part. Oh, go ahead.
So you can't appreciate if you don't know, and you can't know, and you can't accept if you don't know. So it's kind of like a ladder. You got to get the knowledge first, and then your acceptance kind of builds up, and then now you can appreciate people more. When you see differences in people, you need to realize that it doesn't make them weird or inferior to you or anything. They're just different, and different is okay.
Can we take a pause and pin in that? And you also need to assess where you learn what you learned about people's inferiority. Okay. Particularly in the racial context with us, being that we are, participants and believers in the way in Christianity. Of course, we grapple with, is that the white man's religion, right? There are a lot of things that have been touted in the name of religion about what makes people that look like us inferior, right?
Yeah.
So that applies to the homosexual community, all kinds of things. So you got to really just have the courage to examine, which we've talked about in previous episodes. What do you know, and why do you know it, and why do you believe it? And always try to, you ain't got to do it all at once, but ask yourself questions about why you think that way. But continue.
Yeah. So conversations are critical. You got a coworker that's Armenian, and I don't know, whatever.
We live around a lot of
Armenians, yeah. Jewish, whatever. Talk to them about the differences in their culture and their religion. Learn about their genocide. Learn whatever it is you can, so that now you start to understand and hopefully accept and get to the point where you can celebrate other people. Encourage individuals to share their personal stories, their life experience. Mm-hmm. And like I say all the time, pay attention. Pay attention. When you understand the background, where they're from, like I said, you're more likely to be able to celebrate them. Listen, and you can help your child understand. This is a funny story. I don't know if you remember this, but we used to manage an apartment building when we first moved to LA. And
we lived in the valley, by the way.
Yeah, we lived in the valley.
Very important point.
And there was everybody, different cultures in that apartment building, which was great. Jessica could play with all different kind of kids, whatever.
I learned all the things.
They learned all the things together. We went over each other's houses. We ate, we fried chicken our way. They showed us how to make lasagna, whatever. Yeah. It was just a really great community.
It's a melting pot.
A melting pot in that little courtyard where you guys used to play. And the building was in a circle kind of a rectangle, so you could see everybody's apartment. So it was just really, really community, which was important to us when we first got here, because we left community in New York, and that was like really, really hard. So one of the things that happened though is we changed management, and the new manager, I'm just gonna say, was racist. Is plain and simple. Yeah. She had a
don't let California fool you.
She was really, really racist. Her family owned a very famous donut company that shall remain nameless.
And that was a real. I just thought you guys made that name.
No, that's where she came from.
Bad for business.
So she was very, very privileged. But my point is, she would come into the building and say, "What is that smell?" And it would be the Persian family upstairs cooking their dinner. But she was so offended. Oh my God, that smells awful. And I would go, no, it really smells really good to me. I'm gonna go over there and see if I can get a plate. Because she had like this opinion that anything different from her and her way of living and what she ate and what she knew was, the audacity to say,
white supremacy.
What is that smell? Like anybody else would come in and say, whoa, they throwing down over there. What are they cooking? But anyway, that's just an example of how you don't celebrate diversity and you model not celebrating diversity. Because I'm sure, I can't imagine what she was saying to her children, right?
And that brings us to our next point about challenging the idea of what's normal. We're not gonna, we already sort of talked about the racial implications of that, right?
A rabbit hole.
But a lot of that actually does, I think, stem. I actually had a conversation with a friend about this one time, who was in a movie, and we were talking about the movie and the themes around it that had to do with racism and the Klan specifically. And we really were talking about the idea that like normalcy and what's considered normal usually comes out of some sort of form of identity around whiteness.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think even in that instance with that particular woman, I'm not trying not to say the company name if they're still around. That was a cultural shock for her because she probably grew up in an environment where there were not the food was very bland, let's put it like that. And so for her to spell all those spices and things that were foreign to her nose, it stank to her. Whereas to someone like us, we was like, that smells really, really good, right? So that was just what was normal to her. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but for when you be saying other people's food stinks, unless they're making fish in the microwave, I understand. I'm a pescatarian though, so at work, you know what I mean? There's levels and layers. But anyway, it's all about challenging what you feel is normal. And what's normal for you is fine. You have every right to be like, that's normal to me. I'm cool with this. I don't want to change this. But if other people are in places and spaces where their normal is different, or their normal is changing, then you should give them the common courtesy and the respect that you will want for somebody to give you in relation to that. And at the end of the day, I mean, everybody is making their own, family decisions, life decisions, executive decisions, as I like to call it. But everyone's born unique and different with their own perspectives and opinions. So there is really no normal. Like I said, if they try to put you in a box like that, they usually try to put you in that box for another reason. And it usually has to do with white supremacy or some form of cultural assimilation. Okay. It usually has an agenda behind it, because for the most part, we should be celebrating that stuff. So, it's a lot of mind your business, check your entitlement, check your privilege, whatever that is, male privilege, pretty privilege, which I heard is a thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We deal with colorism in our communities, again, stemming from white supremacy, right? How pretty you are, or, what you get is equated to your proximity to whiteness. So anyway, I'm just telling you, because sometimes these things be happening and we just think it's a thing. And I'm like, no, there's an agenda and a plan behind that. So, be willing to challenge your idea of what's normal.
Yeah, which means you might have to have a tough conversation.
Or one or two or three.
Yep, you might have to have a tough conversation with
someone that's different from you. Don't be talking to people that's going to reinforce your ideologies.
You have to be open to the answers. You have to be open to the possibility and willing to change. Go back to our January episodes where we talked about change a lot. Mm-hmm. You have to get yourself into the position of being secure enough and aware enough to say, my opinion about this may be a little flawed or jaded from wherever, you got your experience
and
from.
If you're the person having that conversation and people are coming to you saying some things that you just like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? You got to have on the other end, if they're the person who's like, I'm trying to challenge my mindset, can I talk to you? Do your best to try to create a safe space for that person. That could be scary. That's a lot of the reason why a lot of these ideologies haven't changed, because they haven't had somebody to talk to that won't blow up on them immediately, right? If we're, sort of setting the ground rules of the conversation, and maybe we'll do an episode about that. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean? If you're the person on the other end that's trying to help somebody, with have a conversation. I won't say not necessarily change their mindset, but just try to understand each other from a human, empathetic space. Don't just jump hot when they be like, well, I do think Black people are ugly. You know what I'm saying? Don't just go off for why can't I say the N-word? I've had that one a lot. You know what I mean? Do some deep cleansing breaths and then start to speak. Don't just blow up. And maybe you're not the person to have that conversation. You also might not be the person.
Yeah.
And you need to know yourself enough to do that. And also be truthful. Pam's been in that space a lot.
I can tell you a lot of stories.
It's not always my lane, but
which will, come. I was in corporate America for 20 years, and people would say things, I'll never forget. Oh, we're going to run over. But I have to tell you this one. We were about to do a company merger. And, I don't know, if you know a lot about that, but technically you get fired from that company and the other company has to hire you. So it is I'll never forget this man said, and so then you guys are just going to go along. When we sell the company, we're going to sell you as well. You'll be, and everybody in the room, I said, wait, I'm sorry. And I let him finish. And I said, I'm sorry. Did you just say that when you sell the company,
I assume this was a Caucasian,
you're selling us with it, the property of the company? And I could see that the legal person that was in the room was about to have a heart attack because he said that. But I was like, I just need to understand what you're saying.
I just want you to know that you
just said you're about to sell me.
You just said that.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to have the tough conversation. You have to make people aware of the crazy.
That takes courage. That takes bravery. We'll talk about that on
whatever. Another time. And then take it from a kid's perspective, though, about it's normal. I'm always going to come from the kid's perspective because I love
this is the other
babies.
point. Don't shy away from tough conversations.
Yeah. Your kid is going to see some things that they wonder about and that they want to know, why is that person different or whatever. Another story, one time, I used to sell educational toys, and I took some toys over to a lady's house, and her daughter has cerebral palsy. Well, I must tell you, Jessica was very kind and quiet while she watched the little girl, but then she got in the car and she was like, it was funny, you didn't understand.
I didn't know what the word was.
She said, how did the little girl get the terrible palsy, Mom? And I was like, it's not the terrible palsy, it's the cerebral palsy. So then that gave us a chance to go through, learn a little bit more about cerebral palsy, talk about it, whatever. So I really believe from that, you don't flinch when people are different or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's just been the way we've sort of operated all our life. You see something, you have a question about it. I keep telling y'all, talk to your kids about whatever it is without your judgment in it. Try to be, neutral and objective so that they get the information that they need and not your opinion about what they need to know. And then you could then talk about, well, this is what I believe or whatever, but don't try to force that on them. Just have the conversations and be open. Answer their conversations honestly. And so I'm always trying to create a safe space for your children, for you to have conversations with your children, because it makes better family, and then it teaches them how to create community with their friends by operating in that same way.
I actually saw a lady do this at Starbucks the other day too. We were
that was good
for my birthday. Shout out to the bros, Rodney and Brandon. Great times. Anyway, so we went to go see Transformers, and then after that, we were in Starbucks, and this little girl and her mom came in. The mom was really doing a lot, but anyway, the little girl asked a question because it's Pride, so they had all these rainbow flags around, and she said, "Mom, what's those flags?" And she said, "Well, those are to celebrate the people who have two mommies and two daddies who love each other, and this is their month, and we celebrate them." And I thought that was cool. And then for me, I know I had to have a teacher who had a tough conversation with me. This word is frowned upon now, but there was a time that it wasn't as frowned upon. But when I was growing up, I used to say faggot all the time. Like, I used to be like, you faggot. Like, we used to just call each other faggots, like, for everything, right? But when I started to go to my high school, I had a teacher, one of my favorite teachers, who was a lesbian, and she just would hear me like throwing that word across the courtyard. And she really pulled me aside one day. I had a whole conversation with me about how that was inappropriate, right? And it was really hard for me because I was like, oh yeah. It was shout out to Leslie. It was really hard for me because I was like, what do you mean? Like, I came out of a family in a cultural context where we just kind of threw that word around and it was whatever. And she like really explained
it. And it didn't necessarily mean.
It didn't mean it. What we weren't using it in the context of like a homosexual slur, but it was still wrong because somebody from that community, it meant something to them. It's like the N-word for us, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh. So after that, I eliminated the word from my vocabulary. And then I started to practice this, which is the next step, which is model acceptance. I think this is the third or fourth step.
Yeah.
Anyway, modeling acceptance. So that's about challenging your own biases, right? So I had a particular way in my family culture that I grew up, and my teacher challenged me in that. And, she spoke to the slur that I was using. And I was using it to sort of like make fun of people, and, it was a difference that wasn't in my world, right? But it meant something to the people that were hearing it. Therefore, as a human being on the planet, taking up space with other human beings, this is my teacher, right? I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. So I was like, man, I should probably, stop using that word. And, you could do this. That was at school, right? But workplace, some churches,
please,
restaurants, where you hear people just sort of like slurring these, throwing these terms around. And then so I started to challenge people in my own family situation. We would have, little cookouts or whatever, and I would hear people throwing that word around, and I'd be like, yo, we can't say that no more. You know what I mean? And they're from different generations, so it's been a struggle sometimes. But they've adapted. Like, I feel like we've all been a little more equal, tolerant, things of that nature.
Morgan is the champion.
Morgan, shout out to Morgan. She's the champion. She made us all be better.
Be better. You made us all better, Morgan.
You made us all be better. And so, yeah, because
that brings us to your
people
kids
are watching you.
Your
right?
kids are listening.
Your kids
nieces,
are
watching.
Your nephews, your aunties, your uncles, your parents. So you can really lead the charge in terms of taking cues for how to behave better and make a more equitable and tolerant world by, watching your mouth, watching the things that you say. Watch your mouth. And, it's a work in progress. You're not going to do it overnight, right? Like my teacher really had to have a tough conversation with me to get me to understand like why that was offensive and to frame it in the way of like, this is what I hear when you say that and it hurts me. And so I couldn't argue with her feelings, right? Like I was like, dang, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way.
Yeah.
So some of y'all be trying to come at it from intellectual places, and there's a space for that. But like, unless you academic debating ideologies, just listen to people when they tell you what their feelings are and just go with that. You know what I mean? To be a more empathetic human being.
Which brings us to the next point, which is cultivating empathy.
I think this is 5.
Yeah. Listen, empathy.
Here's the thing. It's really the goal.
But some people really don't have it. Like, I'm just going to put it out there. Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Reptilian
like,
brain.
If you sit there.
I knew Donald Trump should not have been the president when he did. I said, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait.
How are you going to try to teach your children empathy when the president of the United States is standing up there making fun of somebody?
And told the Proud Boys to stand up and stand by. You know, there were both people on good sides. And that was just the racial stuff. Again, grabbing genitalia.
No empathy
there was a
for
lot of things.
other people.
Yeah.
No empathy. And so hopefully this is something you've worked on for yourself. You've developed your empathetic intelligence, your ideas, you know, how you approach people and have that empathy within yourself, because otherwise you can't show anybody else empathy.
You can't show what you
don't know.
People
you work with, people you work for, your children. If you're not empathetic, they're not going to see it. And again, it goes back to what we were just talking about, modeling behavior. You have to model empathetic behavior. And, you know, we all know that person. We all know that person that says the wrong thing all the time, never can understand how somebody else is feeling, how their words are affecting somebody else. And you don't want to be that person. You definitely don't want your kids to be that person, right? And you can give kids a little grace because they're going to ask questions sometime and it's going to be embarrassing, you know.
They don't know.
Thank God Jessica waited to get in the car to ask me why the little girl had this cerebral palsy. But you know, sometimes kids just blurt out things.
They might not remember.
And they might be afraid. Like if you see a little child like you in a wheelchair,
that's scary.
That could be scary to a kid because the kid is like, wait, what happened to them? Because I'm a child and they're about the same size as me. And this might happen to me. You know what I mean?
And I used to feel like that. We used to do a lot of convalescent ministry too. And I used to be afraid of those people. And because it was a reminder of like mortality, right? And like death and like that you get old. So I had to I was terrified. I hated to go, right? But I also had to find empathy of like, these are old people and people get old and that'll happen to your parents and you will want somebody to come sing for them, right? Or somebody to come sing for you. So
somebody to come bring them a Christmas present.
Or, you know what I mean? Love on them if they're in that space. So, you know, again, rooted in fear, but you got to be at a place where, thank God, I don't know, the way I was raised, I could confront that and recognize like, okay, there's something you're afraid of here. It's not that these people are bad.
And why are you afraid of? So then you talk about that.
Why are you afraid of it?
You talk about that.
But you got to get to the root.
You got to get to the bottom of it. And, you know, ask your kid like, well, like she's saying, when I get old, if you're not around, wouldn't you want somebody to come and sing for me or do something for me or blah, blah, blah. So you you try to help your child put themselves into the other person's shoes.
Empathy.
That's how you start to create empathy. And so you're going to help them to be able to see similarities, differences, and to take away the fear. I think that's really good. What you said about the fear.
I just thought about it right now, but like that's a lack of, again, back to conversations. That's a lack of self-awareness, right? You just know you feeling something and you just go with that, right? But you don't necessarily know sometimes what the words are, how to talk about it, or why you're feeling what you're feeling, or if it's okay for you to be feeling what you're feeling. Like, you know, you just got to be like 100 with yourself and find people. Hopefully you have a community of people you can talk to that makes things like less awkward, right? But you know.
Yeah, so we thought it was important to talk about personal diversity a lot on this episode, which is what we've done before. But now we're going to shift it over a little bit.
Cultural diversity, which again, in America specifically, we talk a good game. Like, first of all, for all of those America First people, this is not your land. There were people here before.
Guess what? You weren't first over here.
You wasn't first. Y'all wasn't even first in Europe. Listen, y'all bought a lot of them cultural wars from Europe over here. Y'all had Manifest Destiny. Y'all was, you know, but the church gave y'all permission to come over here and divide and conquer people who had other cultures, languages, lands, all kinds of other things, right? And so it takes work to get to a place where you can appreciate people's cultural traditions, their practices in a society, and we're constantly always working on that, right? But you can't appreciate different people's customs, beliefs, languages in their communities if you're not involved or participating in those communities. So like we talked about the middle of the country, right? But I understand for a long time, there wasn't a lot of diverse people in those communities, right? You didn't have cultural celebrations, food fairs, community events, things that really showcase the richness of different cultures, right? So, like you might do now like a Chinese New Year project or learn about, we extensively learned about the Holocaust, not always about slavery, but definitely about the Holocaust, right? There's all these things, every pride, all the schools freak out, but LGBTQ plus IA communities, right? Trans communities, all these identities, all these things that are now instituted in the culture of places where you should be learning about diversity. Really, I'm like, you should be learning about diverse cultures and peoples and places and schools and various community places where people commune, various diverse people and places. So we do really well on food, but we don't always do well with one-on-one sitting down. Here are some things that we think you can do to work on cultural diversity.
So attend the cultural festivals and events like we talked about. Try new foods from different cultures, learn a new language, watch foreign language films, read books by authors from different backgrounds, read books about different cultures.
Stop banning the books, Florida.
Different communities, listen to music from different cultures. Travel to different countries. Shout out to one of our friends who just took his 10-year-old son to Dubai. They are in Dubai right now, and what that is going to do.
The exposure.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. So volunteer for organizations that promote diversity and inclusion, even a convalescent ministry like you talked about. That was diverse. We weren't, you got to think about somebody that wasn't you and what your presence was doing for them to be there. Attend seminars and workshops on diversity if you want for children. Specifically, talk to them about the importance of being kind, treating people with kindness and respect, teach them to appreciate the different languages, expose them to films, TV, exhibits at museums that are about different communities, because this is how you spark the conversations that make them understand and have more empathy, right? And encourage people to make friends with people from different backgrounds.
That's really a big help.
And in LA, you got to be intentional about that, because
LA is still very segregated,
and it's so you got to go to Koreatown, you got to go on Fairfax and eat at an Ethiopian restaurant. You got to do all these things, right?
Yeah.
And
as you expand your horizons, the people around you will expand your horizons. So you got to be the change agent that you've been waiting for, as we often say around here.
Yeah. So we found a resource we're going to share with you later. It's the Diversity Cultural Calendar. And it has all these different events, the months that you're celebrating, why you're celebrating, what the importance is. I think you'll find it really valuable.
In short, America has a problem. Bop, 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 but so does the human race, okay? At the end of the day, human decency is the goal, right? That's what we should all be striving for. More tolerance, more acceptance. Shout out to Gen Z. I think you guys get it. I think some of the things that we've already been struggling with, you guys are getting it, right? But help us, okay, to continue to foster more decency, encourage each other to learn about each other's differences, friendships, backgrounds, to just be more compassionate human beings. We all got to share this planet with each other. Be compassionate to the animals, okay? We've talked about Earth Day stuff, but just being compassionate and a better human in general. And so celebrate your own individual diversity, hopefully, as you're doing that, figuring that out, challenging your ideas of what you think is normal, not shying away from conversations that need to be had, and encouraging yourself to get to know different people, other people. Let's not even say different, because that implies that one is normal, one is not. Other people that are not you, and the people like you normally,
and all the people you hang around with,
normally commune with, right? Start to commune with some different kind of people. All right. So with that, we're gonna bid you adieu. Thank you so much for your time. Celebrating all month. We're celebrating something, okay? And we're teaching you how to celebrate you, others, other cultures, all the things. But how you gonna know if you're not subscribed? You're not subscribed. Are you subscribed to the YouTube channel? Follow us on IG, Facebook, fan base. If you're listening to this on audio, please leave us a review. We are at Create Generational Wellness on all of the social media platforms. And then just check us out on the Truthful Chats if you're listening. So with that, we will bid you adieu. Thank y'all so much. We'll see you next week.
Thursdays.
Bye.